Hey everyone, Lore Harbor here with another Dungeons & Dragons story. This one I found on RPG Horror Stories on Reddit, and you can find the link for it in the description below. This is a story about a player who lost in Dungeons & Dragons, and instead of taking it gracefully, decided to go ahead and throw a tantrum. With that being said, let's go ahead and dive into today's video. Backstory: the year is 2016, and we are playing a campaign where we are a group of warlock multiclassers who are trying to find the grave of an ancient vampire. We have been playing for like 3 months, and we're reaching the end when we find the grave map, but not before we accidentally let the wizard who made the map escape. The wizard is kidnapped, and we race to the grave. We make it there at the same time as the vampires. A fight starts, the vampires rip us apart, and it's obvious that a TPK is possible. One player begins to get really annoyed each turn. He starts saying things like, "Well, I'm out of spell slots, so I'll just do magic missiles again." We can't flee because if the vampire rises, it'll be a whole thing, and we already had sworn to each other we would die before letting him rise up. Roleplay intensive. The vampire starts knocking us unconscious, and eventually the last PC falls. Horror story. The DM starts narrating how the vampires removed the holy relic that kept the Ancient One asleep. He rises and begins to march towards the kingdom, ready to reclaim the throne. The player interrupts him and says, "That can't be. How do we come back?" The DM says you don't come back. You roll up the new characters who will continue where you left off. We all start pulling out our backups, and the player immediately gets mad. "Bro, you're a f***ing asshole. What story ends with the heroes losing?" He gets up and leaves his own house. Him and his sister hosted the campaign. We start working out a backstory connection while he's gone, and end the session after he leaves. We figured he'll be fine once he cools off. The next session rolls around and we're all setting up, and he's sitting in his room playing the game. His sister tells us he's not coming, so we move on without him. He walks through several times and loudly scoffs at us playing D&D. He then texts me asking if I want to come play Mortal Kombat. Eventually, he comes and sits at the table and asks about the story. The DM gives him the cliff notes and he literally laughs during the DM's story. The DM looks a bit dejected, so his sister tells him to go back to his hovel. Sometimes character deaths can feel cheap or forced. However, in the case of this total party kill, I would say your party handled it with grace, and even poetically, given the roleplay aspects of the game. With the way you described it, I pictured a group of friends fighting against this evil until their last breath and dying for what they believed in. This ending, though tough, raises the stakes for your next PCs and shows there's a truly deadly force fighting against them. If they succeed, it would make the sacrifice of the previous characters all that more meaningful. As for the annoyed player, it's like he rage quit out of the game. You all handled the situation as best you could and moved on. Obviously, you were okay with what happened based on how quickly you rolled new characters. The way he threw a tantrum after and proceeded to disrupt the game for the rest of you is just childish. And laughing at the DM was really sad. The DM, I'm sure, put a lot of hours and thought into preparing the game, and I would bet they felt just as bad about the TPK as the rest of you did. I hope that player learns from their experience and gives D&D another chance, but next time around, handles things with more maturity. And that's where we're going to end today's video. If you enjoy videos like this, then please drop a like, and also subscribe so you won't miss out on any future episodes. I also want to give a big shout out to my patrons over on Patreon, whose generosity and encouragement has made this video possible. If you enjoy the work I do here on YouTube, or enjoy battle maps or tabletop role-playing games online, then please consider becoming a patron by following the link in the description below. And until next time, friends, take care.